Coach Cindy here, ready to dive into a world where magic binds and blades betray. In this opening chapter of Blood Oath of Shadows, we meet Naira Vale, an assassin of the ruthless Ashen Freeholds. The scent of old iron and sickly sweet incense clung to the air as she entered Malus Thorne's sanctum, a room that seemed to hoard oxygen. Malus, a woman carved into patience, sat behind a slate table, her eyes unreadable dark pools holding the weight of every debt Naira had ever survived. Naira knew better than to bleed without being cut in this place. The words exchanged were terse, measured. "You sent for me," Naira stated, her voice flat. Malus's mouth curved, a measurement, not a smile. "I did." This wasn't a lecture, it was a contract. The paper Malus slid across the slate felt heavy, ancient, filled with the dark promise of elegant murder. Naira's pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the animalistic reflex of a trained hunter hearing the chain shift. She looked at Malus, searching for answers. "Who's buying?" she asked. Malus's reply was clipped. "A client who prefers anonymity, for now." Naira's short breath escaped, the truth undeniable. "So it's either a priest or a coward." Malus's gaze flickered with amusement, asserting that priests and cowards weren't mutually exclusive in the Dominion. Naira, boots silent on the stone, approached the slate table, feeling a faint vibration, magic, dormant but awake. It was a sensation her trained skin recognized, a bruise pressed to see if it still hurt. She unfolded the contract with fingers wary of poison. Malus watched, her attention ablade at Naira's throat. Naira read aloud, her voice flat. "Target, Aurelian Soulcrest." The name itself shifted the air, lamps hissing as if ducking. Naira kept her face impassive, but tasted copper, sharp and sudden. "A prince," she noted. "A holy heir," Malus added, like seasoning. "The sanctified Dominion's favorite son." Naira's eyes traced the next lines, location, security patterns written with disgusting confidence. She lowered the paper, a bitter laugh escaping. "You're assigning me the Dominion's crown jewel." Malus leaned back, rings clicking. "I'm offering it. If you refuse, someone else takes it." Naira's throat tightened, praised for her merciless efficiency. Malus continued, "Because you can get close, because you don't make noise, because you don't flinch at prayer." Naira scoffed, "I flinch at stupidity." Malus simply replied, "Then you will be in pain at court." A small, genuine pulse of humor surprised Naira, and Malus caught it like a coin. Naira hated being seen. She scanned the lower text, her eyes snagging on unusual phrasing. Compatibility provision. In the event of blood resonance, the contractor accepts. The air cooled. "Tell me," Naira demanded, each word precise. Malus's voice softened, manipulative. "The client wants certainty. They fear failure. This is a reinforcement." Naira's mouth went dry. "You mean magic?" Malus nodded. Naira knew this was no choice. She took the small blade from her belt. "Last chance. Tell me what the reinforcement does." Malus's smile flashed, razor fine. "It ensures the contract is witnessed by blood." Aurelian Soulcrest, the Sun Prince, knelt in the temple, its marble warm and living. Incense, thin and disciplined, carried the faint taste of citrus ash. His spine was straight, palms open in an offering posture, not for the gods, but for the watchers. An acolyte approached, soft-footed, to offer a small dish. "Your blood, Highness," he whispered. Aurelian kept his voice mild.
My blood is already in the walls, I'm certain. He took the silver bowl, cold against his fingertips. An obsidian lancet lay within, clean and expectant. He smelled the metal even before it touched his skin. Aurelian pressed the lancet to his palm, right where ceremonial scars crossed older ones. He didn't flinch. A thin line opened, blood welled, dark and glossy. 3 drops fell into the bowl, then he wiped the cut clean. He lowered his hands back into the sunbeam and began the invocation in Old Ashen, words vibrating like something alive, bitter on his tongue. He traced a sigil in the air, which shimmered, faintly gold, then brighter as his blood answered. Warmth surged, visible as glowing lines under his skin.
The temple responded, ritual scars on marble columns lighting up. The air grew heavy, pressing down. Aurelian held steady. This was normal. But then, a measured, confident footstep echoed behind him. High Priest Seraphine Veilcast approached, her voice smooth as polished bone. Your form remains flawless. Aurelian kept his hands open. Flawless form is easy when the world demands it. Seraphine stopped just outside the sunbeam, her gaze appraising. It demands it because you are sacred. Aurelian tasted ash. Sacred is a convenient word. Seraphine's mouth curved. Convenient words are how empires survive. Aurelian's fingers paused mid-sigil as Seraphine drew closer, her perfume cutting through the incense. Because you are not praying alone today, she stated. Aurelian's pulse remained slow, only due to practice. My doubts are prayers too. The acolyte gasped, That is blasphemy. Aurelian glanced at him, and yet the ceiling hasn't collapsed. Seraphine's tone softened. You waste tenderness on those who cannot protect you. Aurelian returned his gaze to the sigil. I waste nothing. Seraphine commanded, Complete the invocation. Aurelian drew a slow breath, steadying his emotions, and resumed tracing the sigil. The glow strengthened. Then, something snagged. A sudden, sharp pressure behind his eyes, like a nail driven into his skull. His vision flickered. The sunbeam shuddered. The air tasted metallic, like blood that wasn't his. The warmth in his veins spiked, unstable. His tongue went numb, then burned. What is it? Seraphine demanded. Aurelian struggled for words, his voice strained. He felt watched, not by Seraphine, but by something that had no business touching him through temple wards. He tried to close the working, but magic disturbed didn't close neatly. The sigil snapped inward, sending a burst of heat and pain across his palms. Seraphine stepped into the sunbeam, her shadow touching his hands. Show me. Aurelian pulled back. No. Seraphine's eyes flashed. I deny you, Aurelian insisted. I deny anyone the right to touch my blood without consent, even you. Seraphine's expression smoothed. Consent is a luxury for ordinary men. She drew a sigil in the air above his forearm. Aurelian felt the magic before it landed. A cool pressure, the scent of ozone. Seraphine whispered an old ashen word. Aurelian's veins glowed invasively. His blood commanded to speak. A resonance, Seraphine concluded. With whom? Aurelian demanded. A fresh bead of blood formed on his palm, heavy and bright, undeniable. A tether he couldn't see had found him. Seraphine smiled. It is now. The tracking basin quivered, blood rippling, pulling decisively toward its eastern lip. Tell me, my prince, why is your blood trying to leave you? Her voice, tender yet predatory. Aurelian's head pounded. He clenched his fists. Who? He whispered, not to Seraphine, but to the ache, the impossible pull.
Seraphine commanded. "Find them, now." Aurelian stared at the blood on his palm, understanding with chilling clarity that something had begun without his consent, and it was already reaching for him. Meanwhile, Naira lay flat on the rain-slicked roof tiles of the Soul Crest Citadel, listening to the temple breathe. The oculus above spilled warm light into the prayer chamber. Incense drifted up on the wet air, bitter citrus on her tongue, an unnatural taste. Her contract mark pulsed beneath her glove, a steady, remembering burn. "Just a job," she whispered. She slipped silently down the roof, dagger ready. A young guild runner approached, bringing an update. High priest present, retrieval posture. Malus had warned to abort if Seraphine was present, but Naira refused. She jabbed a pressure point on 2 acolytes guarding the entrance, rendering them silent. One whispered, "He's not cruel, the prince." Naira didn't rip her sleeve away. "That's not my problem," she said, her voice steadier than she felt.
Naira stepped over the acolytes and slipped through the door into the prayer chamber. Warmth, trapped sunlight and marble and incense hit her. The air hummed with contained power, runes glowing faintly beneath the rainwater she tracked in. Aurelian knelt at the center, still and luminous, clad in ceremonial cloth, his locks braided with sacred beads. Seraphine stood near him, her gaze cutting toward the entrance. Naira's palm burned, and Seraphine's eyes sharpened. Naira moved before sound could form, crossing the chamber in a blur of silent steps, dagger low, aimed for the throat. Aurelian turned calmly, his amber eyes lifting, and in that instant, Naira felt it. A pulse, not from the wards, but from her. Her contract mark flared, hot enough to sting through leather, and her mouth filled with sunlight again, warm, bright, impossible, stealing her breath. Her step faltered, just a fraction. Aurelian's gaze met hers fully. Not fear, but recognition, bewildered, as if her face had answered an unasked question. Naira's stomach dropped. Seraphine's voice snapped, "Seize." Naira lunged anyway, forcing her body to obey, forcing the world back into its simplest truth. Kill, survive, leave. Her dagger rose. The moment the toxin-tipped edge cut the sunbeam's boundary, the runes on the floor flared blindingly bright. Heat exploded outward. Naira's palms screamed. The air tasted of iron and burnt honey. Something unseen, intimate, and violent reached for them both, like blood recognizing blood, just as her blade came down. The explosion of light and heat was not a force meant to destroy, but to bind. Naira's dagger clattered to the marble, her hand spasming, not from impact, but from a sudden, searing awareness of another within her own blood. A presence, bright and demanding, mirrored the radiant glow now emanating from Aurelian. Her carefully constructed walls of detachment shattered, replaced by an intrusive warmth that spoke of a shared beat, a pulse she couldn't deny. Aurelian cried out, his hands flying to his chest, not to fend off an attack, but to grasp at a sudden internal shift. His sacred power, now intertwined with something raw and primal, burned in his veins, connecting him directly to the assassin. Seraphine, witnessing the violent blossoming of the bond, allowed a slow, chilling smile to spread across her face. The ritual was complete. The contract, sealed by reluctant blood, now held them both. Naira, the weapon, was irrevocably linked to her target, the prince. The hunt had become a symbiotic dance, an inescapable truth woven into their very existence. Naira's world, a fortress of cold detachment, imploded. A searing heat in her palm echoed an alien presence behind her eyes. Aurelian Soul Crest's
vibrant life force. Her blade, meant for death, lay useless, dropped from a hand no longer her own. Aurelian, still kneeling amidst the shattered sigil, felt his invocation's warmth, but also a new, startling chill, the primal essence of his would-be assassin now flowing through his very blood. Shock rooted him, stripping away his princely composure. Seraphine, eyes gleaming with triumphant calculation, surveyed the scene, the broken assassin, the bewildered prince. "So begins a new chapter, Your Highness," she murmured, her voice laced with a promise of profound manipulation. Naira gasped, the awareness solidifying. She was bound, not by chains, but by blood, to the man she was contracted to kill. Her purpose, her existence, twisted into something monstrous. The sanctuary, once solace, now hummed with an unbreakable connection. Assassin and prince, fused by arcane design, were now pawns in a far grander game. Stay tuned for Chapter 2. The full Bloodbound Crown Saga Trilogy iBundle is available at creativemindscollective.net/bloodbound1.